sits down, he reads through all our resumes. He gets to mine. Man just rips it. Man rips it, looks at me and says, "This is trash."
Hey guys, we're Unconventional Norms. We share stories of people who have found success or are on the path of success in their own unconventional ways. At Oxford, we've seen this common culture of having to get perfect grades, to always compare ourselves to others and needing to get to the top college to reach success. And we really want to change this culture to see that there are many different ways to find success.
Right. So here with us today, we have Oxford alumni Bryan Bobo Lee. So first off, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and also we were talking about earlier, like, where did you get that nickname Bobo?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on here, guys. Good to be here. Just to quickly introduce myself again, I'm Bryan Lee. I graduated from Oxford in 2018, 1A Dominate, and right now I'm a current student at Cal State Long Beach. I'm a rising third year, so I got about 2 years left in there before I graduate. And to answer your question about Bobo, so that was a nickname that I gave myself. I still can't even tell you why I chose that, but in 7th grade, you know, your orientation, you come onto campus and then you're going through all that random stuff. And then I still remember this story. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know Joseph Cho, right? He's another person in the class of 2018, and he's super articulated, and he's been articulated since like 7th grade. Like when everyone was still like laughing and trolling, and like you still had the elementary school vocabulary, this guy was talking like a president. It was nuts. So I remember Mr. had us write like an answer to a prompt, right? And he raised his hand to speak. Yeah, he started reading off his thing, and that was my first time ever hearing someone speak like that, like my age. I was like, what? And then I don't know why, myself and 2 of my other friends that were there, we kind of like giggled, and then after we just met up and talked to each other, and I don't know why. They asked me what was my name, and I just said Bobo as a joke. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was bullied in elementary school and I was having like an identity crisis. I don't know, man.
Like, it's like instinct. You just felt that your name should be Bobo in that moment.
Yeah, something clicked. I named myself after like a circus bear or something. I don't know.
Like you never ever thought about the name Bobo before, and then when he asked you that question, like it just popped into your mind, you said it? Is that how it happened?
Well, no, I definitely have like thought of that name before, you know, like if you think of like a circus bear, like I'm pretty sure I've watched like maybe an Arthur episode or something where someone was named Bobo. But yeah, that name popped into my head. And the weirdest part, like this is a two-sided thing. It wasn't just me being weird. Another, like both of them just agreed with it. And like they didn't question that another person told them my name is Bobo. Like my parents named me Bobo.
They're so chill about it.
Yeah, so they accepted that. They called me that. And then I continued the joke for literally only orientation. And then I was getting introduced as Bobo to other people too. So that's how it went going into 7th grade. As soon as it started, that's what people are gonna call me as, and anyone who hasn't seen me yet, that's all they hear. And then I don't know if you guys ever had Mrs. for PE.
Yeah.
She had us do these name tests back in 7th grade, because everyone had their assigned spot in PE, and then you get a piece of paper and you got to learn everyone's names and write them down first and last. And then it was super funny because I think on everyone's test, everyone wrote Bobo.
Did they get it right though?
No, everyone just got that part wrong. Like, what is this? I don't know what's going on here. That's super funny. So I don't think I ever said anything about it because I didn't realize like how far it actually spread. Like in my head, it was like I'm just joking. And I think by the end of 7th grade or like beginning of 8th grade was when was when most people started like figuring out like, okay, that's Bryan. Like I like, because people were saying Bryan and people were saying Bobo, but they were the same person. But I think by that point, when you call someone by one name for a while, they're like, oh, it's too weird to call you Bryan, so I'm just gonna call you Bobo. So that stuck all the way until I graduated, until now too.
That's a funny story.
You keep that name in college? Like in college, you still introduce yourself as Bobo?
No, I kept that as a Oxford thing. I think it worked better at Oxford because it's so small.
All right.
True, yeah. Okay, so going on to our first question. So, like you said before, you go to Cal State Long Beach, and How did finding out that you're going to Cal State Long Beach affect your mental health?
Okay, so that is a really good question because you guys are all students there. Coming in and looking at all the previous years, we are a school that breeds some crazy students. Like we're knocking out like UC Berkeley like it's nothing, like 20 plus students getting in there and stuff like that. People getting into Ivies. So for context, being surrounded by students like that already puts you in this mental state where, a state school, and just as a reminder, I'm not trying to bag on any kind of school, any Cal State school, because I'm a student on Long Beach. But when you're in this like environment, I feel like I viewed like the Cal States as lesser of a school. It's like, oh, like that's like Cal State Long Beach. It's whatever. I'm looking towards the upper end. Like this is where everyone's aiming towards. I didn't have the division of like, each thing has its quirks, each thing has its perks and downsides. So I think when I found out that after all those years and being surrounded by stuff that I wasn't like, some quote unquote high achieving student that got into a crazy name college, I think it didn't affect me right away. There was that first few days of like, oh darn, like I didn't get into like, my top choices, but I got this. And then I reasoned with myself why this was the good choice and why I was going to stick with this.
Did you have any like expectations for yourself, like going into the whole like college admission process and all that?
Going into the college admissions process, I expected myself to do relatively, well with everyone else, like I'm going to use my free applications on the Cal States, the UCs. I'm going to shoot a few at privates. And then I expected myself to land somewhere in the middle, like, and maybe get one of my reaches, But those are the only real expectations I set for myself. Other than that, I haven't really had any experiences with college apps besides my friends. I'm the first one in my family to apply for that. So I just expected myself to do better than I did.
That probably like played a super difficult moment for you, like having this goal and believing like, hey, I'm gonna go into this college admission thinking that I'm gonna get into like the middle tier, but then finding out that like you didn't get into like any of the colleges that you thought that you were gonna get into. It definitely like it should like take away so much like self-confidence, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure who was teaching business at that time, but when I was in 9th grade, we had the semester of business, semester of health, and Mr. made us do this assignment where it's like a meal planner looking thing, but it's for colleges, and you have to have your safeties, your matches, and your reaches. And back then, I was straight up putting like Berkeley, like, oh yeah, I can do this, bro. So yeah, like when that finally happened, and like I like knew like, okay, I'm going to like a state school while I'm surrounded by everyone else who's just knocking out like Stanford like it's nobody's business. It definitely like humbled me more in a way. It definitely made me reflect more. But the thing is, I don't think it affected me as hard as it would have with someone else because of some of the things I went through before.
Do you wanna touch on those if it's okay with you?
Yeah. So I think in elementary school, I didn't go to like what was that elementary school that all the Cypress kids came from, like Landale or whatever.
Landale.
Yeah.
Landale.
Yeah, so I didn't go to anything like that. The concept of Oxford was like, I think literally only like 2 kids have ever made it in from my district or from my specific school. And I go in there as a 7th grader, and I start hearing kids talk about the SAT. I'm like, what is the SAT? What is elite? Like, what is all this stuff, man? So I'm already surrounded by that, and then I had a very lazy attitude. 7th through 10th grade, I was that guy you saw in the morning, right? I would come to school at like 7 in the morning. I get my breakfast, and you'll see me doing homework. At the time, I didn't feel like it was that bad because the homework like you could do in the morning. Like it honestly wasn't hard, and I kept that habit all the way until 10th grade. And 10th grade, the first semester of 10th grade, that's when it really like I really got slapped in the face. Like my GPA tanked super hard that semester. And that's like my biggest failure. So I got to give some context to all that. I came in, I took AP Physics. I enrolled for AP Physics because I thought I could do that. It did not work like that. You could not be lazy like that. If you haven't already found out, you can't be doing that and taking these classes and expect to like do all right. And it didn't turn out all right. I had a lot of bad grades on my transcript. I had to meet with my counselors. They told me like, hey man, like you're not doing so hot. I had to get pulled out of physics. And honestly, a lot like I don't even think most of my friends know about this, but I think I lied for the first like year after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just lied about what happened because I think you guys can understand the headspace where I'm at. Other people might not understand it, but when you're surrounded by such smart people,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
such successful
Yeah.
people, like I felt really ashamed and embarrassed, and it was really hard to say like, yeah, like I was lazy, and my GPA isn't as high as you guys would like to think it is. And I think I took that with me to like graduation and everything. Like I think I've only told 4 people in total up until now. That's
Mm-hmm.
just a ballpark, but you guys get it. I could count it on a
Yeah.
hand.
Mm-hmm. And like it doesn't help how Oxford's such a small school, so something comes up, it automatically spreads like a wildfire.
Yeah, it's like I gotta keep this in because
Yeah.
if I tell someone, like their friend could know, and then the friend group could know,
It's
soon
just
enough someone's gonna
exploding.
come up to me in like bio and be like, "Hey, what happened?"
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shows like the Oxford culture too, right? Because like at like say I mean I'm not an expert, but at like any other school, like if you dropped AP Physics, like it wouldn't be a big deal,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man.
you know. But
There's like 1,000 other kids in there.
yeah, exactly. But with Oxford, like small community, the competitiveness, like all the people high achieving and all that.
Yeah.
What did your parents think?
Dude, what did my parents think? Honestly, I think I was actually harder on myself than my parents. So again, I'm like the first kid to, like really go through high school, like go to this type of school, figure out college and figure all that stuff. They were on that immigrant hustle of just like, I just need to work. I just need to provide for my kids. I just need to make sure they have all the needs to get there. So I was super hard on myself because I kind of understood that. And when my parents found out, they didn't like spank me or anything like that. I'm a little old for that. But they were disappointed because it's one of the things that Asian parents always tell you. It's like, don't be lazy, don't play games all the time, which I was doing. I was just playing games all the time, and yeah, they were just more disappointed, and that hurt me. And then I was more disappointed in myself because I knew like the potential that I had in myself. And I think that's a really healthy thing that I'll probably talk about later. But realizing your own potential, it hurts when that doesn't reflect because other people aren't going to see your potential. They're not going to, you don't look at someone and say like, oh, I see potential in that guy. The first thing you see is like, whatever happened.
Mm.
All you, like a lot of the first things you hear or see is like numbers, stuff that happened, etc.
A question I have is when you found out about your grades and it totally it totally destroyed your like self-confidence and like seeing that like wow, I see myself in this way, yet I'm just lacking all of that. And I guess what clicked in your head that made you kind of flip it, flip everything, be like, hey, I gotta start getting my shit done.
Yeah, so I think the switch really flipped when everything really transitioned out. That semester ended, and I went on my winter break, did my thing. But when I came back, I had to be enrolled in learning skills, and I was like, God, really? Like, what is this? So sitting through that, them making me do this kind of thing, and then me going through all the motions again and really putting effort in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that whole semester after, I spent all of my effort just going back to school. I didn't play games too often. I really shut myself out. And then the results that came out of that when these test scores were just coming out easier. I was pulling A's out of my butt. That's when the switch really flips because I'm just like, this is totally doable. Like if I sit down and I put like the extra hour or two, the grade reflects. It wasn't as hard as I was making it out to be before. If I stopped being lazy for a second and just did it, it's not that bad. It seems so far away when you're not putting in as much work in it as you should be. And I found reasons to kind of excuse my behavior, but that wasn't the right approach. But as soon as that happened, I kind of realized like, no, like I wasn't wrong about myself. Like I can do this.
Mm-hmm. But like actually starting implementing those habits and like disciplining yourself.
Yeah.
And seeing the
not play
results.
games.
Did people notice? Did other students go, yo, Bobo's acting different in class? Like he's like asking the teachers more questions or something like that?
I think back then, I can't speak for others. I don't know if it showed that greatly. I think it really reflected on my. I think it really started reflecting on my own image and character in my junior years. I started getting noticed a bit more for some of my like achievements and maybe like a few of my test scores. Prior to that though, I'm not sure if that was ever a comment people made.
And so I was listening to your screening questions earlier,
Gotcha.
how like part of that like transition into junior year, you started to like finally find an appreciation and actually learning the subject and like actually enjoying learning. And like
Yeah.
sometimes I know when I tell people like, yo, I actually enjoy learning in this class, they just roll their eyes at me and they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, stop kissing the teacher's ass, man.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
How do you like get that kind of mindset?
Getting that kind of mindset, I think it requires two things. So one is realizing, you know, what's on the other end. It's the state that most students are in where you don't really care, like you're just there to get the grade, right? Like that doesn't feel good. You're not really enjoying class. You're sitting through block periods of like over an hour of listening to this stuff, and you know, no one can say they enjoyed that. No one can say, yeah, I enjoyed sitting here for an hour listening to this teacher talk about this, and I just sat there writing it down like mindlessly. And the other thing is just being more positive, because I think at Oxford too, when your main focus is just, I need to get a good grade on this test, I need to get perfect grades on homework, I need to do well, you stray away from like what you're actually learning and what is the value in that. You know, so you have to be able to take a step away from that and kind of blank that out. For me, right, the way I transitioned into that was I had the pleasure of being with the Mrs. for physics, right? And when I was there with her in sophomore year, you know, she told me, you know, like, you should come back, and I did. And honestly, I was expecting to just get treated like an idiot, you know, because I went through this once and obviously it did not go well, you know, so I wasn't really expecting her to really view me in any sort of ways, just kind of like, oh, you know, he's running it back, you know, whatever happens to him happens. But she really like sat down and made sure that I wasn't trolling my second time around and I was actually learning. One of her like values is actually just like focusing on learning the material instead of like performing on the test. I think going through that whole junior year, I really appreciated that. You know, I don't know if any of you guys have taken physics, but like sitting in class, as different concepts are explained, you know, like kinematics, dynamics, I found different ways to like kind of just see that in like my day to day, which is kind of nerdy, but you know, objectively I'm a nerd. But that kind of thing really helps it out when you can kind of connect it when when my only objective in class is to just, okay, how does this work? Why does this work? Instead of just, okay, but how do I do this on a test? Because I feel like that's your primary objective, you know. Like when you're in when you're in calculus or chemistry, you're not asking, oh, but why does this happen? You're more geared towards like, okay, but how does this translate to a test format? How will this question be asked? You know, how do I convert this to a tangible equation that I can like chug an answer out of? And you know, that's what Mrs. Nguyen did a lot in class. Whenever we would ask questions, she would ask a question back and we would answer ourselves. She would ask a different question back. And that style of learning is super healthy because you start figuring it out. Like at its core, like this is what it is. And like, I know how it works. And I wasn't really concerned about like how I was doing on tests anymore, because after my first two tests, right, when you learn like that and you see that when you just care about understanding it, your grades automatically reflect. When you know how that whole thing works, your grades will just reflect and you'll do well. And then you stop getting too concerned about it, because this new style of learning is not only more enjoyable, but it gives you results too, instead of just sitting there and just like staring all day until something sticks. To add on to that, I mean, when you're first starting to kind of like, you know, focus on anything kind of different from just grinding it out, getting that grade, I think if you don't perform right away and, you know, you don't get as good of a grade, I don't know if you guys ever experienced it. It's really frustrating. You know, when the really smart kids are just getting A's, you know, high B's, whatever it is, and then you're maybe getting like a C or a low B with whatever you're trying to do. It's very frustrating, and you just feel like your thing doesn't work out. I don't know. That's just how I felt for me personally sometimes.
To kind of switch up the topic, I know in your screening questions you talked about scouts and your experience with that. So do you mind talking about that, like your passion for it, like the most notable experiences, learning moments, any stories you have?
Yeah. So scouts for me is really special because it kind of lined up with everything going on around me at school. And so just for context, I joined Boy Scouts kind of late. I think most people are usually in there as like Cub Scouts when they're little kids, or they join like right in 6th, 7th grade.
Mhm.
I joined when I was in 8th grade, and I really like the whole thing. I'm an outdoors person. Going camping with friends is fun. You know, cooking, messing around. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. It's fun. So it was just something I enjoyed doing. I did on my own. But as that whole thing in sophomore year happened, you know, it's where my life goes kind of downhill. I'm still doing scouts and I'm still ranking up. I'm still doing my thing. And then junior year hits where everything starts turning around at the same time. And at the same time, I'm working on my Eagle Scout project, which is a requirement for scouting's highest rank. Like you have to plan out your own kind of like project that gives back to the community in some way. You have to plan that, propose it, get approved, and actually do it. So that lined up because prior to that, you know, I didn't have any club positions. I wasn't really doing anything, and having that thing in scouts really just supported me. I was like, okay, like this is an opportunity to show myself and show others that like, you know, like, I got something too. I got a little something. You know, you guys are like vice presidents and presidents and treasurers. Like I got my own thing. I'm building this up. So that helped out a lot.
I'm a Boy Scout too, Troop 693. I'm a Life Scout. I did my Eagle project. I'm just like working on the last few merit badges now. But like,
Nice,
I'm
nice.
curious, like, with your learning mindset, you know, being in the classroom to actually learn the content, was it the same thing for learning first aid and knots and lashes and that kind of stuff? Because I know a lot of our older scouts, they learn the knots and the lashes to sign off the requirement, and then after that, they just completely forget them.
Oh my god, dude. What you just asked right there is such a good thing. I could go on a whole different podcast and do a whole different interview just for that. That is an issue. But see for me the way it works is you know my troop had a lot of different competitive games where you compete with each other. You had the events like camporee. Camporee is just like a big group camp with other troops. So there's my troop that has a bunch of kids. You know, there's other troops all around the area. So troops from Cyprus, troops from Los Al, etc. And they all come up together, and then they just spend time camping together and then competing with each other in games. And personally, for me, when something is competitive and I feel like I want to beat someone, I'm learning 10 times faster. Like I'm going to get so good at that. No, I'm going to get so good at making that fire. So that helped me a lot with that learning. And then I was put into a leadership position relatively early after I joined. So having to retain that knowledge was just important to have to teach others. So I guess the like enjoying the learning ties in because it's fun knowing how to do that. I guess like it's helped random times. If I'm fishing with friends and they don't know what to do, I'm like, haha, Boy Scouts, hit that knot. Or like I'm tying up like a banner for like a club rush thing in college. You know, it's like, haha, Boy Scout it.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like sometimes I'm setting up the volleyball net for our church's open gym, and I'm like, I got this hitch. I know this, man.
Exactly. It's little things like that where you're kind of like, oh, just to like add on, I think the Eagle Scout rank, when I was going through it, a lot of the people that I knew that were surrounding me, not not people like Dan, like Dan's cool, but there are a lot of people that I knew that like were just going through Scouts and getting Eagle Scouts just to look better on their resume.
Right.
It's just another way to look good. I hate the concept of doing anything for that reason. When I was able to do that stuff, I feel like those small things where I was doing it, it was more satisfying than like, oh look what's on my resume.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those small moments.
I'm curious, what did you do for your project?
So for my project, there's a little park in Garden Grove. It's called Fay Lane Park. And if you go in there, there was like this whole like corner area where they had a sprinkler system. They had a really like beat down garden. I wouldn't even call it a garden. There were two bushes and a tree. And I went in there and I asked them, hey, could I do my Eagle Scout project here? So what I did was I got a lot of water conservative plants, got them all planted down there. I worked with the city, and then the city like fixed up the plumbing system and the sprinkler system. Across the other side, besides from the planting, we sanded down and repainted some of the benches and fixed up the what is the official the horseshoe throwing court, whatever. I don't
Yeah,
know
what
the
is
official. I don't know the official name of it,
what is
but it's.
that?
I don't
I
know.
don't
You
know if all-
you throw horseshoes at like the thing in the
Yeah.
middle.
There's like a stick in the
Yeah.
ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You throw it at the stick. But
Yeah.
we redid that whole pit, cleaned it out. So that was my
That's dope.
project. What'd you end up doing for yours?
I did our church had like a backyard garden type thing. So we installed a new shade structure and brought in benches and then planted plants. And it looks nice, but we're in quarantine now, so no one can really use it. That's the sad part.
No,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Just glad to hear people are still doing their thing in scouts.
It's definitely a good experience because it's like you get to experience truly being a leader. Like you still have your mom and your dad as like a handicap, but like they're not the one. It's not their project. It's like it's your project.
Yeah.
You are the one making the calls. You're the one like contacting people and like setting up the fundraiser and stuff like that. And that's dope.
And
I like that.
And I know it's like so hard to not do things yourself and like delegate that kind of work that you know that like, oh, like I could get this done like right now, but like getting that out there, like getting people to help you and all that stuff is like a big part of it.
Yeah.
I just looked it up. The game is called Horseshoes. It's just called Horseshoes.
Nice. All right.
For sure.
No, nothing too hard. Just horseshoes.
Yeah, I was like, I need to know. Yeah.
For
Because
future
we've
reference.
all seen that somewhere
Yeah,
at some
yeah.
point.
Wait, so I don't know if you said it. I said this already, but when you did your project, did you do it all by yourself, or did you ask like friends to help you with it?
So the way it works is that you yourself have to, do all the communications, the proposal.
Mhm.
You put in a folder, but you compile it all together, and then you do all of that like management work, right?
Mhm.
But I asked some of my friends if they'd like to come and like help volunteer and do that because that's part of it. Like you can't go and like plant all that stuff yourself. You have to get your volunteers, people from your troop.
Do you think that like when you have kids, would you put them in Boy Scouts?
No doubt.
I think while we're on the topic of like your high school years, I want to
Yeah.
know what was your craziest experience?
Man, my craziest experience. That's a hard question to ask off the dome, but I mean I have a lot of really funny stories. I mean I almost set off the fire alarm in Hawaii. I almost got an entire hotel evacuated. Yeah. So I was in orchestra for all my years at Oxford, and we go on trips sometimes. New York, Hawaii, San Francisco, I think. But we went to Hawaii my senior year, and we were all really tired, and we were just like, okay, let's go hit up the convenience store downstairs because Hawaiian convenience stores are crazy. These are so nice. This is like 7-Eleven, but like insane. So we go down there, we get a bunch of ramen, and we come back up, and then everyone's showering, everyone's getting ready, making their ramen and stuff. I'm so tired. I still don't even know what happened that day. But basically, I opened up my ramen, right? Just opening it up, put in the seasoning, and then I'm like, oh man, I have to go pee. So I go pee, and then I come back out, right? And then for some reason, like being in the restroom, I registered that I already put water in, so I put it into the microwave.
Oh
and
no.
I just turn it on, and I just go and lay back on the bed, right? And like I think someone's in the shower, someone else was in another room, and then no one says anything, and then the guy comes back, and he's like, and he looks over the microwave, he's like, dude, what's in the microwave? And then I look at the microwave, and there's just black smoke coming out. And then it clicked. I was like, I didn't put water in the ramen, and then everyone was just freaking out. Like someone was like, dude, someone put a pillow over the smoke detector, quick. And then someone was like, dude, open all the doors. So like someone opened the main lobby door, and then someone opened the window door. And then someone comes out of the shower and says, dude, close the door. The smoke's gonna go out to the other people's rooms. So they close it, but it's too late. So then the whole floor smells like smoke now, and then the security comes up and they knock on the door and they're like, hey, we got some calls about like smoke, like, do you guys know anything about it? And then this was so embarrassing because I was like, yeah, I had ramen. And then they finished my sentence. They're like, oh, you didn't put water in it, did you? And I was like, oh god. I was like, yeah. I was like, did anything happen? Like do we need to clean anything up? And then they're like, no. You just got really lucky. If the fire alarm was set off, then there'd probably be a problem because the whole hotel has to evacuate. And yeah, that was it. I woke up the next morning, and Mrs. just like talked about what was going on. And then she's like, yeah, I heard some of us don't know how to make ramen. And I was like, dang.
That's tough, dude.
But clearly you weren't the first one to do that if the security guard
I
already
was
knew
definitely
it.
not the first one to do that because they finished my sentence.
That's hilarious.
So that's like probably one of my like really near crazy experiences.
I think let's talk about your experiences in college.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the biggest things can you talk about is your engineering internship and how you got it.
Yeah. For anyone who's watching right now or would watch, right now I'm currently a vehicle engineering intern at Northrop Grumman. They are a private defense company. So they work on different stuff for the military, the government, stuff like that. And I've been working there for 5 weeks now. It's been really good. It's like real world experience, and I'm doing actual engineering stuff. The process in order to get it, I kind of set my sights on getting an internship within my first year, because as I went in and as I started talking to people, I was like, oh, it's not just like go to school, get out, and then get a job. It's like while I'm going to school, I need to be looking for a job. That's how engineering works for anyone who's like trying to get into engineering. Your real world experience is valued so heavily that getting this internship is your primary goal of all things. So I had a bunch of different things. So, you know, all colleges offer free resume workshops. I'm pretty sure like 50% of clubs on campus at one point have offered a resume workshop. There's a lot of interview practices. So it's little things like that I started touching upon. There's career fairs. You know, it's like a whole ballroom setup, and then you go in and everyone's there and you can talk to people. And that whole first like year, I kind of touched upon it. So, you know, I made a LinkedIn. I had a resume. I had, you know, cover letter templates. Had all of that. And unfortunately, I didn't get anything my first year. But my second year, I really set my sights on it. So I did not skip on like a large majority of events. So I was there at majority of interview workshops, like professional etiquette workshops, professional dress, how to navigate career fairs, anything along those lines. I was just grinding it out. And I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a group of friends that supported me a lot, and that a lot of them had professional experience. So I was just there like, hey, you know, what are some questions that I can look forward to, or like what are some things that I can do? Oh, engineering projects. Okay, let's find an engineering project to work on. So I started one with some of my friends. My day was just school, and then how do I get a job? School, how do I get a job? And it's just anything that led up towards that. And lucky enough, I didn't have to wait that long, because during my second year, so this past fall, there was a career fair where Northrop Grumman was there, and then I talked to them. They liked me, and everything worked out. And then I got an offer letter in the fall for them. So that was the general overview of like how I actually got here.
Do you think that your experience with finding out that you got into Cal State, which is of course a lower school than you originally wanted to, do you think that actually motivated you later on to want to work harder than people who have already gotten to like these top big schools and work harder than them in order to get like these internships?
Most definitely. I mean, I'm not trying to be overconfident or like cocky in any way, but I definitely feel like I've worked a lot harder than some of my other like peers, maybe not at Oxford, but some of my other peers at like higher universities. And you guys had Richard Tram on recently, and he talked about a really important point when he felt like, you know, he could have done better than UCSD. So his mind just switched to like, then I better prove that. You know, what I'm saying isn't just like BS. And that was in my mind too. I was like, I'm at Cal State, and, you know, people got this bad stigma about it, or like maybe people feel like you can't find success here. So I'm going to show them like, no, I'm here and I'm going to find success, and you're not going to speak about it ever again. Cause I faced a few like judgmental experiences, you know, after people have learned that that I'm going to a state school. So that was a really big driving force. When you want to prove yourself, I feel like that's when you're at your best. Cause I wanted to prove it to myself too, that I didn't make some kind of mistake in my decision. I didn't like choose the wrong college or anything like that.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure about this. When like companies are like providing internships for students, does like a Cal State versus like, I don't know, like maybe like a UCLA, would UCLA students automatically have a higher chance of getting the internship over Cal State, or do they see it equally?
So I definitely support the statement that, if you go to a like quote unquote better university or more famous university,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a better chance. School, like larger companies will probably lean towards, sending more reps towards like Stanford or Berkeley, or Harvard to find recruits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest benefit in my mind to going to that kind of university, is that people will reach out more often. But when it comes down to how they evaluate you, from the engineering standpoint, it's really about like what you actually bring and what you have actually done.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if a student from like a Cal State has a lot of different like work, right? Like maybe they're on the rocketry team, maybe they're on some kind of robotics team, and they have a position in that, and maybe they have a bunch of side projects, like I built a small like 3D model bipedal like walker. It's just like a little robot that walks, nothing crazy. Little stuff like that adds up, and that looks way more impressive, not only to me but to recruiters, than you just flexing your school.
Mhm.
Like the name of your school will not carry you. Like if you happen to like go to UCLA, right? And that's all you have. Like, oh, I go to UCLA, this is my GPA, and you go against that kid from the Cal State, like that kid is gonna murder you in this game.
Definitely.
Like, and like try to think of it in your shoes, right? So the way they look at it is like, would you want the student that has obviously tried to dive into like some kind of engineering experience, has obviously tried to do more? Would you trust that more than the student that maybe goes to a better school, but that's all you know about them? Like
Definitely.
you just have their school and their GPA. Certain things are more trustworthy. Not to say that this student is going to do something bad. It's just this student has proved themselves by doing things. So that's been my like small experience from personally, and just like looking at how other people have navigated their way around that.
I think one of the biggest things, like from your story of trying to get that internship, one of the biggest things that I am really inspired by is the fact of how you were super humble in wanting to learn and put yourself in a position, like in those, taking those, like going to those classes of resume building. Because I know that before, I think this is a common ego, like it's like it's gonna affect our ego of like, oh, I don't need a resume builder. I know everything. I'm like perfect. But you taking that stand of like being humble, like, hey, I still have to learn, and that definitely benefits you.
Yeah, and I think I got extra humbled pretty early on, along with some of my other friends. So off the bat, I knew I had a decent resume. For someone who has never done anything, I think I had a decent resume. I just lined it up, and I thought to myself, this is not too bad. I don't think this will get me a job, but it'll do something. And I showed it to my other friend. He's already had his like employment, and at some point I'll probably show him this, and he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. He sits down, he reads through all our resumes, he gets to mine, man, just rips it. man rips it, looks at me and says, "This is trash."
Oh my goodness.
He did that to everyone's, man. Like I think someone had a 2-page resume. He just took off the second page and he just threw it out the door. I'm not even joking.
Damn.
And like, the concept of building a resume seems so simple, but once you get into the nitty-gritty, you realize there's so much to it that you don't know. And like I really appreciated that I had someone older than me that was really blunt, like that didn't stroke my ego. I feel like that's really important when you give advice to people. Don't stroke each other's egos. He didn't tell me that like, oh yeah, it's not that bad. He just told me like, no man, your resume is bad, you got to do this top to bottom. Because looking back at it, I look back in my Google Drive because I saw my like resume when I went into college. I was like, man, that is ugly.
Damn. I can't believe you just ripped it up.
I know.
So
Dude, there's nothing else to it. I'm sitting there in my like business professional clothing, just rips my resume.
That must have man, I would be scared. I would just lose so much self-confidence in that shit. Oh my goodness. No, I totally understand you with being blunt, but But
when
for
it
me,
comes at you like that, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
scary,
I think it's like the
bro.
surprise of it.
Damn.
Like no way you saw that coming.
No, I did not see that coming. And then like literally 2 minutes later, he's like, all right, everyone hop on your Google Drives. We're fixing your resumes. And it's like, okay, I don't even have time to just kind of like wallow in the thought that you just ripped my resume up. That I definitely that I totally did not, spend last night just fixing this up again for you.
So, what do you think is the most important thing to success? Whether it's like your environment or whether it's like the discipline, like what do you think?
I think the most important most important thing to finding success, not only in like engineering, but in just anything, is to one be passionate. You like whatever you're working towards, you want to work towards something that you have some kind of interest in, like you do like it.
Mhm.
Not just because not just because it makes the biggest salary, not just because it gives you the most clout on the internet. You want to do something that you're going to enjoy, because if you think about it, if it's something you're going to do for like a couple years, you got to know if you can do that. And then the other part is actually sitting down and putting the work in. I've met so many individuals that have talked about how much they want to do something, or they have like a very drawn out plan of like, yeah, I want to graduate here, I want to go here, and then I want to get into these things, and then I'll find success. But when it comes down to it, they're like, no, instead I'm gonna go to the Bobo guys instead of that workshop. I'm gonna go ahead and go get Bobo or something instead of doing
Mhm.
that. You
I
know,
get you.
like when it comes down to it, you need to be willing to put in that work and put aside other things. Not to say that you should be working all the time, but you got to prioritize things.
And I think maybe it's from like my personal experience, but I feel like, let's just say like you're in that lazy mindset of, hey, I'm just gonna go around, go get boba. I think, to be honest, like it's gonna hurt like hell, but your biggest failure is gonna make you want to change your mindset. I think that's like the biggest motivator. Whether it's like, for example, me going through my depression, like kind of making myself like, hey, I'm gonna like work my ass off like every single day. Um, or like your position of finding out that you had a super low GPA and how to get out of physics, and that like kind of a little bit of humiliation, just kind of be like, I'm not gonna have to go through that shit anymore. And just like kind of pick up your pace, definitely.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you've ever like tasted failure, whatever it is in your mind, then you're very you're bound to do well. You're bound to do a lot better, because you don't want to ever touch that again. You don't want to feel like that again.
Yeah. I think another important aspect of success is self-confidence. I think, how do you improve self-confidence?
So that is actually a really good question and a really good trait to have. There's this very fine line between self-confidence and overconfidence.
Hmm.
But in order to kind of find your self-confidence, I think one of the best things to do is actually just put yourself out there and try different things, you know? And
Hmm.
I know everyone is on a different page, everyone is on some different point, and that could be a different thing for you. One of my biggest things was just I wasn't confident enough to like go into a random interview room to just get interviewed by someone. Like I don't even know that person. I'll probably never see that person again in my life.
Hmm.
But I was still nervous enough to where I was like, I'm gonna sit down and answer questions. I couldn't do that. So I think the biggest part of gaining that confidence is just doing it.
Hmm.
Whatever it is you are uncomfortable with, whether it has to do with your school or another outside organization, take those little steps to just put yourself out there and then put yourself in a position where you're kind of at risk.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think another good thing about actually just like simply just doing it is that, let's just say like you like what happened to you, the guy rips up your paper, like probably one of the most like worst things that could happen in that
Yeah.
scenario, right? You felt like, oh, I already gone through the worst, so there's no other way. Like if I were to go through that situation again, there's no other way it could be worse. So like you're gonna have a little bit more self-confidence in being familiar with the situation and knowing that, yeah, there's no way I'm getting worse than this. So I'm gonna be like definitely be more confident because I've learned from that situation.
Another thing that I found that helped me personally, right? That helped me build up my confidence was, I don't know if they're the same things, but it's trusting the process of whatever you're doing. you know, anything that you do or engage in, you just have to trust that and just go with it and figure it out. Don't give up on don't give up on like anything like weird halfway through until you kind of like really figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of trust where things are going. You know, I'm at this like new school where, you know, I knew other kids in my graduating class that, you know, went to Long Beach, but I wasn't particularly really close to them, or it's either that or they were across campus. So I was in this new environment. I had to like make new friends because it's a commuter school. I commute there. I don't dorm or anything. It's not that far. So, you know, it's a completely brand new environment. So a lot of the things that I'm figuring out, it's like, oh my God, like I don't know what's happening here, you know. And it didn't help when you know, all of my other friends at dorms, you know, were posting like dorm party or like roommate snap or room tour. You know, that's really just like, dang, I'm sitting in the library figuring out what to do. So, you know, you just have to trust that wherever you are right now, it's gonna be all right. I think I think I just kept telling myself it's gonna be all right. I'm gonna do it, and then that helped build up my confidence. Because, you know, even if it goes bad, I get out of that room and I just tell myself it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's like really impressive that you like have that mindset of like constantly like growing your self-confidence through like all those experiences and stuff. And I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing like all those experiences, like the scouts, the school, the like everything you shared. I think it all had meaning for like all of us. And
The ramen experience.
yeah, the
Talk-
ramen experience made us laugh. So we don't want to take too much of your time. So I'm gonna leave you with one final question. So
Yeah.
if there's one piece of advice you could give to someone listening right now, what would it be?
One piece of advice. Dang, that's like the ultimatum. Okay. My final piece of advice goes towards mostly the seniors, you guys,
It's
and
5
the first years in college, right? My biggest piece of advice is don't be hard on yourself. You know, your life is your own game in its own sense. You know, whatever everyone else is gonna do, be happy for them. You know, wish them well, but don't compare yourself to them. This is your own thing, and all you have to do in your game is just be better every
I
time.
like that. I love that.
You know, drown out everything else. It's cool. It's cool that your friends might be going to the top universities and you might not be, but, you know, give it a few years. If you just keep improving, you'll be right there with them.
Definitely.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you
Bobo.
again. I love having you on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Thank you so much, guys, for reaching out.